Vietnam. The name alone can evoke deep emotions and opinions, but let's gaze beyond the cloud of the past to the light of reconciliation and future promise as we visit the Vietnam of today.
Warmly welcome all Americans to visit Vietnam as friends, not enemy anymore, because the war has stopped and it stopped in our mind too.
Vietnam's new open door policy allows thousands of Vietnamese entrepreneurs to go into business, stocking their shelves with imported goods along with the local products. In this new era of capitalism, no one, it seems, is more welcome than Americans. Our delegation from Santa Cruz, California, led by Mayor Catherine Byers, was provided this opportunity to meet the people of Vietnam by an invitation from the Vietnamese Veterans Association. We see that the Vietnamese have proven strongly resilient despite the hardships created by war and many years of international isolation. Throughout their 2,500-year history, the people of Vietnam have developed and maintained a strong sense of unity and perseverance. The stability of routine and family have traditionally been the strength of the people. During their daily exercise ritual at dawn, young and old gather around Hanoi's Hoan Kiem Lake to welcome the new day. As the peaceful moments of morning wane, the hustle and bustle of Hanoi's city streets have set the pace to begin our 8-day peace-building journey throughout this mysterious and misunderstood land as the guests of our former enemies.
We invite you to come to Vietnam, but our government warmly welcome you.
As a young man, I made a pledge that I would go to jail before I'd go to Vietnam. So it's a special treat for me to be here at your invitation and to be traveling with veterans.
Our meetings has contributed a lot to the solution of so many thinkings, so many illusions about one another. And since then on, we became friends, have become friends with one another.
We met General Quang in 1994 in Santa Cruz when he attended the International Committee meeting for the Friendship Village. Supporting the project are representatives from France, England, Germany, Japan, and the United States.
On behalf of millions of the Vietnam veterans and the peoples of Vietnam,
xin cảm ơn tất cả các bạn
thank all of you
vì cái tình hữu nghị đó
for your struggle for friendships and peace,
và chúng tôi luôn luôn để
and
trong
we
lòng chúng
always
tôi
keeps in our heart
cái sự biết ơn đó,
the thanks
bây giờ cũng như sau này,
at present and for ever.
As a living symbol of this peace and reconciliation, General Quang and the International Committee are building the Vietnam Friendship Village, a self-sustaining home for 250 orphans, elderly, and handicapped people located in the province of Ha Tây, 11 kilometers outside of Hanoi. We are shown the first house by Mr. Trudeau, who is in charge of construction on the project. Then we planted a banyan tree as a symbol of friendship and peace, knowing that someday it will shade the front gate of the village. The plans include a medical clinic, which will also serve the people of the surrounding area, a community center, which will provide a forum for international exchange, and primary, secondary, and technical schools to supply the much-needed education and skills to excel in the new era from poverty to progress. Mr. Trudeau explained that in order to create a sense of community and family, the orphans in this house would be cared for by heroic mothers, the women who had lost their families in the war. The village is a model for the world to see how to care for the devastation and loneliness of war. At the time of our visit, the first house had been completed and construction of 2 more houses was underway, but the project is still desperately underfunded.
I feel that veterans who have participated and seen the true horror of war have a particularly credible voice in speaking out against war. I think it's also important for veterans not just to demonstrate and speak out against war, but to set examples of what the kinds of things that we can do. And the Village of Friendship project is one historic example. There are veterans and caring citizens from 6 different countries at this point who are all former enemies now working together in the Village of Friendship.
Vietnam qualifies as one of the poorest nations on earth. Of the almost 75 million people who populate Vietnam, over half are under 20 years old. Everywhere we looked, we saw children, and some of them were homeless and wandering.
Father, mother, I am dying. Excuse me, you can for use for me money go to learn English. I want to go English. English.
You want to learn English?
Yes, I want.
Many of the children we met sold postcards, maps, and newspapers to tourists around the lake. They all told us the same story. They had no mothers or fathers, and they wanted to learn English to better their lives. They showed us ID cards from a program called Za Mai, run by a man named Mr. Vu Tien. Za Mai, meaning far from mother, is a program that has given practical assistance to homeless children in Hanoi since 1992. Conceived by Mr. Vu Tien in response to the UN Convention on Children's Rights, he likened Za Mai to the ancient custom of the house with the unclosed door. We inherit our ancestors' experiences to receive children all day and all night. He said some of the children have become homeless due to poverty. They've lost one or both parents and have been in extremely difficult situations. Along with food and shelter, the children attend English classes in the evening. Expenses are met by the sales of the postcards, maps, and newspapers. And while Za Mai is able to care for 50 children a night, There may be as many as 6,000 living on the streets of Hanoi and 50,000 in the whole country. In Vietnam, children are considered adults at age 16 and must leave the ZAME program and provide for themselves using the basic skills that they have learned. Some of the older boys showed us a section of Hanoi seldom seen by tourists, where 15 boys pay for floor space on a mat in the front room of a house owned by a man they call Boss Tommy. Here we meet our friend Ken, who came to Hanoi alone when he was just 8 years old. Ken befriended us around the lake and impressed us with his English. He acts as a kind of a guardian for several of the younger boys. He tells us his dream.
I tell you, the kids here in Vietnam are so bright. Most of them are bilingual. And this is Ken, our friend, who's, you're 18? How old are you?
I'm 19.
You're 19. How often do you stay in this house?
I say maybe 6 years.
6 years?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes, I want to come to American. Hope everybody Vietnamese don't have family and kind of hope money go to the clinic for job. I want to go money job for doctor and hope everybody in Vietnam don't have family.
This heartfelt glimpse into the lives and day-to-day existence of our bright new friends helps us to better understand the great need for supportive communities like the Friendship Village. The People's Committee is the elected governing body of each city in Vietnam. Mayor Byers presented Dr. Nguyen with the key to the city of Santa Cruz and spoke about the Friendship Village and the role it plays in the reconciliation of our two countries. One obstacle to reconciliation is the smoldering MIA issue. Mr. Lamai reminded us that the United States still had 8,000 men missing from the Korean War and nearly 40,000 missing from World War II, while the number of unaccounted for U.S. servicemen in Vietnam is now less than 100. We asked General Quang about the number of Vietnamese MIAs, and he told us that that number is estimated at over 250,000. Presiding over everything in Hanoi is the spirit of Ho Chi Minh, founding father of modern Vietnam. Ho Chi Minh had a long history as a revolutionary and devoted his entire life to the struggle of Vietnamese nationalism and anti-colonialism. As a young man, he traveled the world and lived in many countries, including the United States. In 1919, at the Versailles Peace Conference, he attempted to present a proposal for Vietnamese independence to then President Woodrow Wilson, but was turned away. Ho Chi Minh leaves a legacy of commitment, determination, and respect.
Và trước khi tôi ra về để đi trở về mặt trận.
And before saying farewell to him to return to the battle,
thì Hồ Chủ tịch nói với tôi một
he
câu
told
như thế
me
này.
a sentence which I remember always deeply.
Chú cố gắng làm sao để bác được đi vào Việt Nam.
You tried how to bring me to the south to meet the people.
Tôi hứa với bác.
And I promised with him.
Nhưng mà cuộc chiến đấu còn kéo dài, cho nên
but the war, the struggle still lasted, and 4 months later he died.
Chúng tôi không kịp.
So we didn't have opportunity or have a time to bring him to visit the South. So it is my most memorable memories with Ho Chi Minh. If you want to become a peacemaker, first you have the peace in your mind and in your heart first. And when you love peace, you will become the peacemaker.
Our two nations have a new chance to come closer together, and I hope we will open a new step for cooperation, for friendship relation.
The optimistic attitude of the youth, coupled with a nearly 80% literacy rate, makes the future hopeful as economic changes sweep Vietnam. Preparations for the 21st century are underway at this first exposition at the Institute of Technology in Hanoi.
Very good. Vic is the wonderful artist that painted this velvet fabric, and then this young man, Jun, is the tailor who measured and sewed. And together they're a great team, and look what they create. Wow, I think it's going to be a new fashion trend in America.
Water puppetry has been enjoyed for over 1,000 years. Unique to Vietnam, it originated in the wet rice fields. Puppeteers are hidden behind a curtain, immersed in the water, while musicians on stage provide the soundtrack. As we watched, the amazing puppets performed vignettes reflecting the rich history and culture of Vietnamese life. On our last night in Hanoi, we savor the sights, sounds, tastes, smells, and music. Early tomorrow morning, we journey south, knowing we have made new friends and new memories. We bid farewell to the modern yet ancient city of Hanoi. Xin chào. Along the dreamlike banks of the Perfume River lies the cultural heart of Vietnam, cradle of traditional music and home of the Nguyen dynasties. Our host, the Vietnam Veterans Association, met us at Phu Bai Airport and drove us through the old stone gates of the imperial city to our hotel, the Hoa Sen, or Lotus, a beautiful, clean, and lavishly furnished family-run hotel representative of many being built in Vietnam today. When in Hue, go see Mr. Hai Van Lo, Director of Tourism for the Veterans Association. Following the Asian custom of exchanging business cards and drinking tea, we discussed the plans of turning tourism and culture into an opportunity for investment. We were certainly charmed by the friendliness, hospitality, and mouth-watering regional specialties.
Oh, it's wonderful.
It's really
Good.
Brian Burns, student of martial arts and Asian affairs, reflects on his father, who was killed in action in 1967, just 2 months prior to Brian's birth.
I just feel like seeing what some of the things maybe he saw and experiencing some of the things that he experienced would just bring me a little bit closer to him, or that I could get to know him a little bit better. And I mean, that's the part that nobody knew in the family, really. It's almost like, I almost feel like I'm going back. You know, the blood's going back. Yeah. That's that part of it. That's pretty indescribable.
Culture is a bridge to heal old wounds and connect societies. Working in cooperation with the Vietnamese government, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, has done much to restore Hue's cultural heritage, nearly destroyed by the fierce fighting during the 1968 Tet Offensive. They have long-range plans to motivate the international community to help with the preservation of these magnificent monuments. The Imperial Citadel was constructed in the early 19th century as an almost exact copy of the Forbidden City in Beijing, China, with an outer wall which encloses the Forbidden Purple Palace. Only royalty was allowed to enter. The cultural golden age of Hue was possibly the reign of Emperor Tu Duc in the mid-1800s. Invited to live in his impressive court were the best poets and artists of the day, given a royal stipend to cultivate their crafts, therefore ensuring Hue would be a city of scholars. We delivered medical supplies donated in Santa Cruz to Mrs. Phan Thi Han.
Yes, I'm in charge of 11 provinces of the central Vietnam. Yes, I'm in charge of the family planning activities.
We visited Mrs. Han's clinic in Hue. Women come from throughout central Vietnam to be educated and treated in birth control, reproductive health, and sexually transmitted diseases, including AIDS, which is on the rise here like everywhere else in the world.
We just have the projects in rural areas, not in the city.
Oh, so you have other clinics in the rural, or do you go out?
We go out. We go to give them the medicine. Yes,
And
then
you
do examination there, and if we find out some difficult cases, we bring them here. Yes, we have a car, so we can do that. Yes.
According to socialist ideals, the husband and wife are equal. And even though the law on family and marriage stipulates that both men and women are responsible for family planning, women take almost all responsibility. The doctors, nurses, and technicians at this clinic are responsible for the health and welfare of tomorrow's Vietnam. The need is great, and anything donated is greatly appreciated.
Very nice. Very useful here too.
Here is the river, there is the mountain. They are still the same. Our land is as beautiful as brocade. Why then worry, my love? Right now we are going to rebuild our future, to provide a tree for the bird and a sampan for you to cross the river. We hope to return someday to the warm-hearted and regal city of Hue. We're heading south on Vietnam's Highway 1 over the pass of the ocean clouds, the traditional social dividing line between north and south. We view turquoise lagoons, deep green mountains, and peaceful fishing villages such as Long Co, a paradisiacal peninsula of palm-shaded white sand. Some of the most tranquil and spectacular beaches in Southeast Asia are found here on the South China Sea. Ahead, Danang, China Beach, the mysterious kingdom of Champa, and Marble Mountains, where there are a number of natural caves and grottos used for centuries as religious shrines and altars. During the American War, they were used by the Viet Cong as hospitals. Now the marble is mined by artisans from the surrounding towns and sold to tourists. Larry Goodman, a veteran who served here in 1969, returns with his daughters.
They're having a good time, as you can tell. For me, I'm really glad that, I can expose them to something so different and alien to our own culture. And just something as simple as walking down the street or seeing kids out on the beach trying to sell their goods just to survive. This is an incredible experience for them. They don't get this perspective where we're from, so I really enjoy the relationship to time here, because it's so much more, you're grounded. A moment is a moment, as opposed to what I experience back in the States, where everything is at such, on a level of speed. When I was here in '69, one of the things I enjoyed about Vietnam was that relationship, where you lose time, where you don't know if it's a Monday or a Sunday, and it doesn't make any difference if it's Friday.
Danang will be remembered as the site where hundreds of thousands of Americans got their first look at the exotic land of Vietnam.
On this day last year, Mr. Scott Kennedy had the proclamation to declare the day of friendship with Vietnam.
Yes. Đúng ngày hôm nay ông đến Đà Nẵng.
And today you are here in Da Nang.
Cái sự gặp gỡ hôm nay ở đây rất có ý nghĩa.
And your meeting with us here today is very, very significant.
And even though within the United States we still argue a great deal about the war in Vietnam, the Vietnam veterans are bringing us to healing with the people of Vietnam.
It's important emotionally for them to come here and make their peace. Then they can go forward. I think there will be many more.
Your contribution to our Friendship Village project is a very obvious evidence for the progress, for the developments of the relation between the two countries. And the presence of young students, Brian Burns, is very significant here. A young generation in the States is now thinking differently about Vietnam.
My mother and I have never harbored any resentment against the Vietnamese people. I also wanted to come see the place where my father fought and died here.
And while none of us can change the past, any of us can change the future. This is what's happening here today.
As we meet each other, there will be peace and partnership.
Above all, the United States people should understand the importance of sovereignty and independence. So maybe in the next years we can learn from each other.
Elvis Presley was born in 1935 in Mississippi and died in 1977 in Tennessee. In 1950, his family left Mississippi to Tennessee, and there Elvis Presley became a truck driver. And after a few years, Elvis Presley became a very famous singer in the United States.
We have another delivery, this time to a Danang eye doctor, donated by an associate from California. Although access to health care has improved, the shortages of funds, qualified physicians, medicines, and equipment prevent the government from providing quality care for more than a few.
It is perimeter.
Perimeter.
Yeah, perimeter. It can be used to measure visual field. It's very important for me, but it's necessary to eye doctor.
Beautiful mythological sculptures displaying the 1,000-year-old Cham period can be seen at the Cham Museum in Danang, the best collection to be found anywhere in the world. One of the few remaining matriarchal societies, the roots of Cham culture show Indian and Khmer influences. All religious and family matters are governed by the mother. Women are revered by the Cham community. In the 15th century, the artistic glory of the Kingdom of Champa fell to Vietnamese expansion. The surviving Cham are one of over 50 indigenous tribes of Vietnam that reflect the country's ethnic complexity. Nestled on the banks of the Tu Bon River just south of Danang is the town of Hoi An. Originally a seaport during the Champa era, Hoi An was one of their principal cities from the 2nd to 10th centuries. From the 16th to 18th centuries, Hoi An thrived as a port of call for all parts of the world. During its zenith, Indian, Dutch, Portuguese, Spanish, Chinese, Japanese, and even American ships came to acquire its quality silk, tea, ceramics, and a host of other goods. Because of this international exposure, Hoi An represents influences from the East and West. Today, parts of this quaint town look just as they did centuries ago. As with every town we visited, our hometown, Santa Cruz, is presented with a commemorative gift from the Vietnam Veterans Association.
Trong quá trình đấu tranh giành độc lập của Tổ quốc chúng tôi.
In our struggle for independence of us,
chúng tôi cũng gánh nhiều hy sinh đau khổ.
We had to suffer so many things from the war times.
Cho nên chúng tôi rất khao khát với hòa bình, hữu nghị.
Then we strongly desire for peace, cooperation, and friendship.
We certainly do admire and respect your independence and your sovereignty.
Then, at our request, we are taken to a place where we can see firsthand the suffering caused by the American war. At this orphanage, many children are cared for who are victims of poisoning by dioxin or Agent Orange. Some have been abandoned by their parents. Medical researchers say they cannot prove Agent Orange is responsible, but health officials have witnessed a dramatic increase in birth defects, infant mortality, female reproductive disorders, and various cancers among people who lived or fought in areas sprayed. The United States dumped more than 12 million gallons of defoliant over 4.5 million acres of South Vietnam. Our heartbreaking tour was tempered by the deep love which seemed to emanate from the eyes of the children. Until further research is done, no one knows how many generations will be affected by the dioxin in the food chain. In Ho Chi Minh City, we meet a heroine of the wartime, Mrs. Ho Thi Bie, who explains her lifelong dedication to Vietnam's independence.
Nhưng mà thật ra không còn cách nào hết.
But we have no other choice.
Muốn có cuộc sống hòa bình,
We want to live in peace,
hạnh phúc,
in happiness,
thì phải tất cả cái gì của bản thân của mình dồn ra cùng với các
and
bạn.
we have to try every effort that we have to defend our peace and our happiness.
Chiến đấu để mà giành lại cái hạnh phúc và cái tự do đó.
Fighting to gain, to achieve again the happiness and the freedom that we have lost.
Thousands of women fought side by side with the men in the elaborate Cu Chi Tunnel complex, which was designed as a defense against the French in the 1940s and 50s. The entrances to this subterranean labyrinth were remarkably well hidden. This fascinating maze is where the Viet Cong lived, conducted operations, and took refuge from the massive American air attacks on this fertile land, which was once the fruit basket of Vietnam. The tunnels were enlarged during the American conflict to include several levels. There were kitchens, barracks, hospitals, printing presses, and even theaters with entertainment. When in use, the tunnels stretched amazingly over 150 miles from Saigon to the Cambodian border. During the war, the tenacity and determination of the underground guerrillas earned the respect of their American counterparts.
It's pretty amazing. The only thing you can have is respect for your enemy, you know, when they've gone to this extent, you know. But hey, survival.
There are many children who are now deformed because of the affection of their parents, their mother or father.
Tàn tật vì chiến tranh do bom đạn và do chất độc hóa học.
Because of the bomb cells or because of the infection of the chemical agents.
Thì di hại đến ngày nay vẫn còn.
And still the affection now exists.
After touring the tunnels, we were treated to a banquet lunch on the Saigon River by the former commanders of the Viet Cong in the area.
The wounded soldier want to drink with the mayor of Santa Cruz, one drink.
Sau đó chúc sức khỏe, bà cụ ráng giữ gìn sức khỏe, mạnh giỏi
Wish
sống
you
lâu.
good health and for your longevity.
Rồi sẽ trở lại Việt Nam
And
nhiều lần nữa.
return to Vietnam many times after this.
Tôi muốn chúc nhà báo tự nhiên và nhà báo cũng tự cảm thấy mình tự nhiên.
3 times a day, we're eating like this. These boys snake juice. Yeah. Let me tell you.
In contrast to the North, you'd never know Vietnam is communist by visiting Ho Chi Minh City. The love of Song Voi, or living quickly, is practiced everywhere in this city on the move, the heady spirit of capitalism in every niche. This is the bustling business center of Vietnam, with armies of motorcycles, French colonial architecture, and tree-lined boulevards. Discos, cafes, and ancient pagodas are the essential experiences of this city that bears the name of Ho Chi Minh, but perhaps will always be known as Saigon.
Never seen a city where everybody smiles. It's too much.
From high government officials to the kids on the street, we've been treated with warmth and sincere hospitality throughout our visit to Vietnam.
So we look forward to our countries enjoying full diplomatic relations. We want to have strong people-to-people and veteran-to-veteran contacts
Giữa cựu binh với cựu binh ngày càng chặt chẽ hơn.
to keep our government honest.
With a future of peace to look forward to, Vietnam still has many obstacles to overcome. Years of bitter strife have left broken hearts in both North and South, but the process of integrating Vietnam's many parts is moving forward. General Tran Van Tra sends a message to Vietnamese living in the United States.
Tôi nghĩ rằng mặc dầu sống ở xa đất nước, nhưng mà người Việt Nam khi nào cũng nghĩ về Tổ quốc Việt Nam. Và xin chúc dân cộng đồng người Việt sống phát triển và hạnh phúc, và mong rằng có dịp thì về thăm đất nước quê nhà. Người Việt ở đất nước không bao giờ không nghĩ tới những người Việt ở xa nước, và ngược lại người Việt ở xa nước cũng luôn luôn nghĩ tới người Việt ở trong nước.
With many Vietnamese people who living in the United States for a long time, but they cannot go home, and now they can go home. That Vietnamese feel happy when Mr. Bill Clinton been live in Bago, and not only in Vietnam but also in the United States, everybody feel happy when they going to live in Bago with Vietnam.
Some of the issues facing the Vietnamese government are the protection of human rights and limits on personal freedom, the rapidly expanding population, widespread poverty, malnutrition, and lack of basic medical supplies for an overwhelmed healthcare system.
There are a lot of problems still exist during the war. Because of the war. We had a 30 years of war in Vietnam. The economy went down. A lot of families lost their children. But after 20 years, we try our best to rebuild all this.
In an attempt to address these issues, the Friendship Village brings together the international community to create a model for cooperation and partnership. It also provides a channel for those who would like to make things better.
How we come together, it is a question. For the people to understand each other, because to understand each other is a primary task, primary work to build the friendships relation. Because if we do not understand each other, how can we have the friendship with each other?
The Vietnamese are healing their wounds and moving on. The feeling in Vietnam today is hope.
And peace in this place with these people. And I'm very, very happy to see this bridge having been so strongly built and not to be easily torn down.
In tonight's cover story, a look at the effort of some local veterans and activists to promote peace with Vietnam and its people 20 years after the end of the war. Jeff Huck and L.B. Johnson have just returned from a 2-week visit to North Vietnam.
They want to rebuild their country and get on in the world marketplace, and they are so friendly to Americans. It's incredible. They hold no animosity towards us.
I think that's one of my biggest obstacles, is that people have an image of the war, explosions when they think of Vietnam. And it's really a very beautiful place and of old culture and really friendly people there.